Welcome back to R&B Zoom. Tonight we're traveling through 15 unforgettable years of R&B history, counting down 10 soul classics from 1960 through 1975 that became legends despite their creators never repeating the same success. These are the songs, the heartbreak, the luck, the timing, and the history that transformed ordinary artists into immortal voices. Stay with us until number 1, because the final story may be the most emotional journey in all of classic soul. Some songs weren't just hits, they were lightning in a bottle. They topped the charts, changed R&B forever, launched ordinary people into superstardom, and then, almost as quickly as they arrived, the spotlight disappeared. Number 10. Color Him Father, 1969. The Winstons.
Come home each night, tired and beat.
Before one of hip-hop's most famous drum breaks changed music forever, there was a heartfelt tribute that almost nobody expected to become a national anthem. In 1969, a little-known Washington, D.C. soul group called the Winstons walked into the studio hoping to record a respectable regional hit. Instead, they unknowingly created 2 pieces of music history in a single session.
Old man got killed in the war. She knows she had 7.
Color Him Father wasn't written about romance or heartbreak. Songwriter and lead singer Richard Spencer wrote it as a moving tribute to stepfathers raising children as their own, an unusually emotional subject for soul music at the time. As America was living through the Vietnam War, thousands of families connected with its message of sacrifice, responsibility, and unconditional love. Radio stations embraced it almost immediately because it spoke to something much deeper than entertainment.
Think I'll color him love.
Released in the spring of 1969, the record climbed to number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100, reached number 1 on the R&B chart, and sold well over 1 million copies, earning a gold record. The song also won the 1969 Grammy Award for Best Rhythm and Blues Song, making the Winstons one of the most unexpected success stories of the era. But hidden on the B-side was an instrumental passage called Amen Brother. Drummer Gregory Coleman performed a 6-second drum solo that would later become the legendary Amen Break, arguably the most sampled drum break in music history, forming the backbone of thousands of hip-hop, jungle, drum and bass, and electronic records.
Think I'll color him love.
Yet the irony couldn't have been greater. Despite creating one of soul's biggest hits and accidentally laying the rhythmic foundation for entire genres decades later, the Winstons never enjoyed another major hit. Financial rewards from the endlessly sampled Amen Break never reached the band in any meaningful way, and Gregory Coleman died in poverty in 2006. One unforgettable hit, one 6-second drum break, and a legacy that still echoes through modern music every single day. Sometimes the most influential artists are the ones history almost forgot.
Said I've been studying hard all day at school.
Number 9, Rescue Me, 1965. Fontella bass. Before millions of people shouted the chorus, Rescue Me almost never existed. Fontella Bass had grown up in St. Louis, surrounded by gospel music. Her mother was a respected church pianist, and everyone expected Fontella to follow a traditional musical path. Instead, she stepped into Chicago's exploding soul scene, signing with Chess Records at exactly the right moment. The recording session became legendary for its energy. Producer Billy Davis encouraged the musicians to keep everything loose and spontaneous. The famous background shouts, hand claps, and call-and-response vocals gave the song an infectious excitement that sounded more like a party than a recording session. That joyful spontaneity became its greatest strength, helping the record leap off radio speakers across America. Released in 1965, Rescue Me stormed to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, while reaching number 1 on the R&B chart. It sold over 1 million copies and quickly became one of Chess Records' biggest crossover successes. The song has since appeared in countless films, television shows, and commercials, introducing new generations to Fontella's unforgettable voice. More than 60 years later, it's still instantly recognizable within seconds. Ironically, the success also became a burden. Disagreements over royalties and songwriting credits followed the record for years, and Fontella eventually left Chess Records frustrated by the music business itself. Although she continued making outstanding music, nothing matched the cultural explosion of Rescue Me. One incredible rescue call echoed through history, but the next artist created a soul anthem so timeless that many listeners still assume somebody else recorded it first. Number 8. Be Thankful for What You Got, 1974. William DeVaughn.
But remember, brothers and sisters.
Most soul stars spent years chasing record deals. William DeVaughn spent his weekdays working as a government draftsman in Washington, D.C., sketching engineering plans and collecting a steady paycheck. Music wasn't supposed to become his career. It was simply something he loved after work. But in 1974, armed with nothing more than a dream and about $900 of his own savings, he decided to take one chance that would change his life forever.
Diamond in the back, sunroof top, big in the scene.
Instead of waiting for a record label to discover him, DeVaughn hired Philadelphia's legendary session musicians, members of MFSB, and booked studio time himself. His lyrics celebrated something almost unheard of during an era obsessed with luxury and excess. Though you may not drive a great big Cadillac, he sang, reminding listeners that gratitude mattered more than wealth. It was a message wrapped inside one of the smoothest grooves ever recorded, inspired by the socially conscious songwriting of Curtis Mayfield.
A great big Cadillac, diamond in the back.
When the single was released in early 1974, radio couldn't ignore it. Be Thankful for What You Got climbed to number 1 on the Billboard R&B chart and reached number 4 on the Hot 100, eventually selling nearly 2 million copies. Its unmistakable bass line, silky rhythm, and understated vocal became staples of soul radio, while its famous lyric, "Diamond in the Back, Sunroof Top," would later be quoted and sampled by generations of hip-hop artists, from Dr. Dre to Snoop Dogg.
Diamond in the back, sunroof top, big in the scene with a gangster.
Yet success proved impossible to duplicate. DeVaughn released more music, but nothing captured the same cultural magic. He quietly stepped away from the spotlight, becoming one of soul's purest examples of lightning striking only once. One self-funded recording, one timeless lesson in contentment, and one groove that continues to echo through music half a century later. But even that remarkable story couldn't prepare anyone for the unforgettable phone call waiting at number 7.
With a gangster lane,
Number 7. Woman to Woman, 1974. Shirley Brown. Sometimes the most unforgettable opening in music history wasn't written at all. It was lived. When Shirley Brown entered the studio in Memphis during 1974, she had a powerful ballad in front of her. But something still felt missing. Just before recording, she imagined a woman gathering every ounce of courage to make the hardest phone call of her life. Without warning anyone in the control room, she picked up the microphone and began speaking. "Hello, may I speak to Barbara?" The room fell completely silent.
Step aside.
That spoken introduction wasn't part of the original song. Brown improvised it in one emotional take, creating one of the most recognizable openings ever recorded in soul music. Backed by the legendary musicians of the fading Stax Records, her voice balanced heartbreak, dignity, anger, and vulnerability without ever losing control. Producer Jim Stewart immediately knew they couldn't improve upon what had just happened. The first take became the master recording.
Can't you see where I'm coming from?
Released late in 1974, Woman to Woman reached number 1 on the Billboard R&B chart, climbed into the top 25 of the Billboard Hot 100, and sold more than 1 million copies. The song became the final major commercial triumph for Stax Records before the legendary Memphis label collapsed under financial pressure. Decades later, its influence remained undeniable, inspiring countless answer records and eventually serving as the foundation for Shirley Murdoch, Beyoncé, and even hip-hop artists who sampled its unforgettable drama.
let her take what's right.
But history can be cruel. As Stax disappeared, so did the momentum behind Shirley Brown's career. She continued recording outstanding Southern soul music for decades, yet mainstream audiences forever identified her with one extraordinary performance, one improvised phone call, one unforgettable confession, and one final masterpiece that closed the curtain on one of soul music's greatest record labels. Number 6. Rock Your Baby, 1974. George McCrae. History almost remembers the wrong singer. In the spring of 1974, George McCrae wasn't supposed to become a superstar. His wife, Gwen McCrae, was the artist producers wanted to record. She already had a growing reputation around Miami's thriving soul scene, while George was simply helping during rehearsals. But when Gwen couldn't make the session on time, producer Harry Wayne Casey, better known as KC, and bassist Richard Finch needed someone to sing the demo. George stepped behind the microphone expecting to erase his vocal later. He never did. The moment his effortless falsetto floated over the rhythm, everyone inside the studio froze. The groove sounded unlike anything on American radio. Instead of a live drummer, the musicians relied heavily on the Roland TR-77 rhythm machine, one of the earliest drum machines ever heard on a major pop record. That mechanical pulse, mixed with smooth soul melodies and irresistible bass, created a sound that would soon become known around the world as disco. Released in June 1974, Rock Your Baby exploded. It reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, topped the R&B chart, became a hit in more than 80 countries, and reportedly sold over 11 million copies worldwide. The single didn't simply dominate radio, it helped reshape it. Many historians credit it as one of the recordings that opened the commercial door for the disco movement, years before films like Saturday Night Fever made the genre a global phenomenon. Artists across pop, soul, and dance music immediately began chasing its formula. Yet success can create impossible expectations. They continued recording throughout the decade and remained especially popular in Europe. But no follow-up ever matched the cultural earthquake of Rock Your Baby. Ironically, the man whose voice helped introduce disco to millions became remembered for one extraordinary recording, while countless others built careers on the sound he helped pioneer. One unexpected demo, one accidental masterpiece, and one falsetto that quietly changed the future of popular music forever. 5. Mr. Big Stuff, 1971. Jean Knight.
To give you my love. Oh, yeah.
Sometimes revenge doesn't come with shouting. It comes with a smile. In the summer of 1971, an unknown singer from New Orleans walked into a tiny recording studio with no idea she was about to record one of the sassiest songs in soul history. Jean Knight had already spent years chasing a break, recording singles that barely made a ripple. Record executives weren't convinced she had star power, and even she began wondering whether music was meant to stay a dream instead of becoming a career.
Gotta make me cry, Mr. Big Stuff, tell me.
Everything changed inside the legendary Malaco recording studio in Jackson, Mississippi. Producer Wardell Quizergay handed Jean a playful song written by Ralph Williams. Rather than sing it politely, she delivered every line with confidence, humor, and just enough attitude to make listeners smile. "Who Do You Think You Are?" wasn't simply a lyric, it became a challenge. Her performance transformed a simple groove into a personality record, one that audiences couldn't stop quoting.
Think you are Mr. Big Stuff.
Released by Stax Records in 1971, Mr. Big Stuff became an overnight sensation. The single climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, spent 5 weeks at number 1 on the R&B chart, sold more than 2 million copies, and earned Jean Knight a Grammy nomination for Best R&B Vocal Performance Female. Its infectious bass line, crisp horn section, and unforgettable hook made it one of the defining soul records of the decade. More than 50 years later, the song continues to appear in movies, television shows, commercials, and playlists celebrating classic soul. But lightning rarely strikes twice.
I know you broke their hearts one after another now, bit by bit.
Although Jean Knight continued recording and remained a respected performer throughout her career, none of her later releases came close to matching the enormous success of Mr. Big Stuff. She became forever linked to one unforgettable hit, proving that sometimes a single perfect performance is enough to secure a permanent place in music history. One fearless vocal, one timeless groove, and one question that generations of listeners still love answering every time the record starts.
Stuff. You never gonna make me cry.
Number 4. Groove Me, 1970. King Floyd.
Side, come on.
Some of the biggest records in soul history weren't born inside million-dollar studios. They came from tiny rooms, with borrowed musicians, limited tape, and producers praying they had enough money to finish the session. That was exactly the situation facing King Floyd in Jackson, Mississippi, during the summer of 1970. After years of struggling through local clubs and small recording sessions, Floyd walked into Malaco Studios with little expectation beyond making a respectable regional single. The budget was painfully small. The musicians had little rehearsal. Nobody inside that room imagined they were about to create one of the defining grooves of early 70s soul. The song was Groove Me.
We can live happily now.
Producer Wardell Quizerge understood something many producers overlooked. Instead of burying Floyd beneath elaborate orchestration, he let the rhythm breathe. The tight horn section, the relaxed bass line, and Floyd's conversational vocal made listeners feel as though they were hearing someone singing directly across the living room. Nothing sounded forced. Every note felt effortless.
Groove me, baby. Move me, baby.
Released later that year on Chimneyville Records before national distribution through Atlantic Records, Groove Me exploded. It reached number 1 on the Billboard R&B chart and climbed to number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100, selling well over 1 million copies. The record became one of the earliest national success stories to emerge from Malaco Studios, helping establish Mississippi as one of America's great soul recording capitals. Its unmistakable groove has since been sampled and celebrated for decades, while original recordings and television performances remain widely available online.
Oh yeah, now make me feel good.
But chart success can disappear as quickly as it arrives. King Floyd continued recording throughout the decade, yet nothing approached the impact of Groove Me. His smooth delivery remained admired by soul fans, but mainstream audiences forever connected him with that one unforgettable groove. One modest recording session, one irresistible rhythm, and one record that quietly became a cornerstone of Southern soul.
I'm good loving with plenty hugging.
Number 3. Everybody Plays the Fool, 1972. The Main Ingredient. Every generation believes heartbreak belongs to them. Then a song comes along and proves everyone has lived the very same story. By 1972, The Main Ingredient had already endured more tragedy than most groups experience in a lifetime. Original lead singer Donald McPherson had died from leukemia in 1971, leaving the future of the group hanging by a thread. Many assumed the group would quietly disappear. Instead, a young singer named Cuba Gooding Sr. stepped forward and inherited an almost impossible task, leading a group still grieving the loss of its voice. Rather than imitate the past, Gooding brought warmth, confidence, and sincerity. Songwriters J.R. Bailey, Rudy Clark, and Ken Williams created lyrics that felt universal. Instead of blaming broken relationships on one person, the song admitted a simple truth. Eventually, everybody becomes the fool. That honesty transformed the record into one of soul's most relatable classics.
There's no exception to the rule.
Released in the summer of 1972, Everybody Plays the Fool climbed to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and reached the top 10 of the R&B chart, becoming the biggest crossover success in the group's career. Radio stations embraced its timeless message, while audiences connected with its gentle melody and comforting perspective on love. More than 50 years later, the song continues to appear in films, television programs, and classic soul playlists around the world. Although the main ingredient continued releasing quality music, no later single ever matched the cultural reach of "Everybody Plays the Fool." Sometimes one song says everything an artist ever wanted to say. One heartbreaking loss, one remarkable comeback, and one unforgettable reminder that love has humbled every generation. Number 2. Leaving Me, 1973, The Independents.
I'm sick, babe.
Sometimes the greatest songs begin after everything falls apart. By 1973, veteran songwriter and producer Chuck Jackson had already experienced the highs and lows of the music business. Instead of chasing another solo hit, he decided to build something new. Alongside singer Helen Curry, he formed The Independents, believing audiences still wanted sophisticated soul built around storytelling instead of gimmicks. Few people outside the studio expected the experiment to succeed. The chemistry was immediate. Leaving Me unfolded like a conversation between two people watching love quietly disappear. Jackson's rich baritone carried the pain, while Curry answered with warmth and vulnerability. Rather than competing, the two voices completed each other, creating one of the most emotionally balanced duets of the decade. Backed by lush Chicago soul production and elegant strings, the performance felt more like listening to a real relationship than a commercial recording.
Give me all your time.
Released in 1973 on Wand Records, the single became a national success, reaching number 1 on the Billboard R&B chart while crossing into the top 40 of the Billboard Hot 100. Soul radio embraced its mature storytelling, and the record established The Independents as one of the year's biggest breakthrough acts. Decades later, collectors continue to rank it among the finest examples of early 1970s Chicago soul, and original recordings remain widely available on YouTube for new audiences to discover.
I hope one thing can't be true, and that is.
Yet lightning rarely strikes twice. Although The Independents released several respectable follow-up singles, none captured the same commercial momentum. Internal changes, shifting musical trends, and the rapidly evolving soul landscape slowly pushed the group out of the national spotlight. One unforgettable duet, one timeless story of love slipping away, and one record that still reminds listeners how beautifully heartbreak can sound.
Old Tom over there, he want you to leave me there.
Number 1. Love Jones, 1975, Brighter Side of Darkness.
But now that I'm here,
Every once in a while, teenagers create a record so mature, so emotionally convincing, that listeners refuse to believe their age. That was exactly what happened in Chicago during 1975. The members of Brighter Side of Darkness were still in high school when they walked into the recording studio. Most had never experienced the kind of lifelong romance they were singing about, yet somehow they captured the excitement, innocence, and nervous anticipation of young love with astonishing authenticity. Nobody expected a group of teenagers to produce one of the smoothest soul records of the decade.
what, baby? What is a love, Jones?
Built around silky harmonies, warm electric piano, and graceful orchestration, Love Jones sounded completely different from the aggressive funk dominating radio. The record invited listeners to slow down. Its lyrics celebrated affection without drama, while lead vocalist Oscar Brown delivered every line with surprising confidence beyond his years. DJs quickly noticed audiences refusing to change the station whenever the opening chords appeared.
But you see, darling, I think it's
Released in 1975, Love Jones climbed into the top 20 of the Billboard Hot 100 while reaching number 6 on the Billboard R&B chart, becoming one of the biggest crossover soul records of the year. The song has remained a favorite of Quiet Storm Radio, vintage soul compilations, and collectors who continue introducing it to younger generations. More than 5 decades later, its gentle production and timeless melody still feel remarkably fresh.
I
But success arrived almost too early. As the members grew older, life carried them in different directions before they could build on their breakthrough. The group slowly disappeared from the national charts, leaving behind one unforgettable recording that continues to symbolize the innocence of young love. Sometimes a single song says everything an artist was destined to say. One remarkable moment, one unforgettable harmony, and one timeless soul classic that refuses to grow old.
Ooh,